A lackluster day when it comes to the gains on the JSE, only slightly in positive territory. What was interesting to note, though, was that volumes number, 14.6 billion rand passing through the market today.
Volume did increase, particularly in the closing auction. We had a closing auction of around 5 billion this afternoon. Something similar to what we had yesterday already. Does look like exchange for physicals actually dominating the auction and bolstering the volumes overall.
When you look at some of the weakness that we did see today, industrial banks, financials not doing that well. Of course, it was the resource space which resulted in a slight gain for the overall market. Will we be continuing to see this kind of cyclical rotation from the likes of the banks in the industrial sector and a movement towards resources?
The industrials and financials today did look particularly weak relative to the rest of the broader market. The miners themselves, those gains were driven from London and the benefit from that side. It looks like going into the closeout tomorrow, market overall seems to be favouring the resource area at the expense of the industrials and financials.
With regards to Naspers at the bottom of the top 40, down 2%, ending the day off at 379 Rand a share. And of course, the trading update seems to what has created the negativity in the share. Out an hour before the market closed and saying that core headline earnings per share will be up between 10 and 20%. Would you say this is a disappointing number?
It does look like the number itself was disappointing. Looks like expectations for core headline earnings were in the region of 30%. So guiding up between 10 and 20 was a disappointment.
Would you look at Naspers as a buy right now, given the fact that it is well below that 400 level?
The viewpoint on Naspers does still hinge on the investment in Tencent to a large degree. You have seen the weakness there, also seen the weakness in some of the other tech names. The hype of the recent listings does seem to have abated a bit. At this stage, probably fairly valued based on its holding in Tencent at this point.
Also a lot of positivity when it comes to Sasol, this stock gaining 1.6%. I mean, obviously when you look at that oil price at $120 a barrel, it makes you wonder about the fortunes that will result in Sasol as well. But given the fact that the company has been saying that it is going to have solid returns, also keeping in mind the local currency might be a bit of a deterrent, where do you see things going for Sasol from here?
Sasol looks encouraging at this point. The chemical margins, which they did allude to in the statement, were positive, and it does look like that's going to continue to offset the weakness that they're currently experiencing as a result of the rand. Oil prices hold the current levels should also bode well for them. Many actually ignore the chemical side of Sasol's business, so that should provide a solid kicker going forward.
Would you say that Sasol, sitting at around 352 Rand a share, is underpriced, undervalued by the market?
It does look attractive as far as we're concerned, particularly with respect to the outlook for chemical prices.
There's no stopping Exxaro, at least in the last couple of trading sessions. The stock up 3.7%, closing at 166 Rand 60. Strike possibly imminent for the company. We also know a lot of asset managers looking at some of the reports that have been released, taking the company to a buy from hold. Do you think that this company is perhaps caught up in a lot of the hype, or would you say that these kind of gains are here to stay?
Maybe some of the games that you did see today could have been a little bit more technical. This morning you did have Territory Resources' board, which backed Noble Group's bid for that company. Exxaro was in the running for that, and maybe the board backing does also negate the fact that they would have maybe needed to make a rival bid at a higher price. So it might have been a little bit of relief on that. That also provided some kicker on the upside.
At the beginning of the year, we know a lot of investors were looking at Standard Bank, which of course was above 100 Rand a share. It's now sitting at 95 Rand 35 cents. Would you say it's a buy at this point? Down 1.65% today. It seems that Standard Bank was one of the favorites not too long ago. Do you think that it still is for investors? Is it offering value at this level?
On the banking side as a whole, we have a view that we don't see anything really to provide much of a driver for gains at this point. So Standard Bank in particular, we rather negative on, and the banks as a whole, we are a little bit on the cautious side.
So no buying into the banks. Okay, looking overall at the markets, how much of a concern is what is playing out in Greece? We had that dismal rating by S&P yesterday. We know that the US debt ceiling is still very much under the spotlight and still being debated. President Barack Obama came out and said that we could see another financial crisis if the debt ceiling is not raised. Is this a concern in terms of the fortunes for the local market?
It looks like these issues have been dominant for at least the last month, and at this stage do look like they are going to continue to remain the significant features, particularly from an offshore perspective. Local direction does continue to be driven from offshore, so the influence of these markets does look like it's going to continue to keep this market in the range where it is at present.